Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder and CEO of JumpStart Sports. I have Rick Hart. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you on. Well, we are kindred spirits, being our background in sports. So I'm excited to hear all about JumpStart. So you got started in 2002. What was the origin of the company? Tell me how you got started.
I got very sick in 2000. I was in the hospital for 3 months of that year and just kind of in cruise control of 2001. And my wife saying to me, you know what I want? I want to work with kids in sports, because when you come close to dying, you realize what's really most important in your life. And I realized that I had gained a lot in my life through participating in sports. And in my 20s, I was a big brother and saw the same for my little brothers. And then at the time, we had 2 young sons and a newborn daughter. And I had seen, even at their young age, how important sports had been for my kids. And I wanted to spend, you spend 80% of your life at what you do for a living. So I wanted to dedicate my professional and business life to doing something that I was most passionate about. We originally had planned, I gave my partners notice in February of 2002 that I was leaving the firm. I was a part owner of an advertising company. We were going to build a facility, a big sports complex with a bubble dome and golf driving and basketball courts, soccer courts, had the financing in place. Lo and behold, I find out that's not a great place to invest your future in. But I had started some programs in Hudson, Ohio, where we have lived for now 30 years. And I was kind of the Pied Piper of sports in town. So, we, with the good graces of the Little League and the, youth programs in the area, and with the rec department, we started some programs which became very popular. And that's when I was doing my due diligence and finding out that opening a sports facility is not a great way to invest your money. So in October of that year, the rec director in Hudson said to me, "You wouldn't want to run the sports camp next summer, would you?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? I would love to run the sports camp. How would I do that?" And he suggested the model that became JumpStart Sports, which is to work in partnership with the city. And we run camps and summer camps and sports programs all year round. Um, and we work with cities and school systems. And that was the birth of it. But we found a need not only in the Cleveland area, but in many other areas. So that was the birth of the concept and the business model.
Wow. Well, Rick, first of all, I'm super impressed, and I want to commend you that you averted financial disaster by not opening that sports facility. That was,
no doubt.
It is a dream of so many people, and there's so many challenges that obviously I'm not going to get into in this podcast on why so many of them don't work and they're financially,
Right.
A mistake. But it sounds like you found your niche by partnering up with Parks and Rec and starting to run those camps. So first of all, what sports did you start out with? And was it just only camps?
We started with what we saw a need for. We had done little preschool sports programs through the YMCA that were, in my view, very poorly run. And there was nothing in Hudson. They were 2 towns over. So we started, t-ball and soccer for preschool age groups. And then we did off-season sports. So we offered fall baseball. And then that fall, we started to run after-school programs and sports camps. camps are a huge part of the business, but we really try and focus on the mission at all times to really impact the lives of kids through sports. And I've always said that if we focus on what's good for kids, it'll wind up being good for our business, and that wound up being the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rick, you start this in 2002. You leave your successful advertising career. Was your wife fully supportive right from the get-go? I mean, that's a huge decision to make.
I'm very fortunate in that my wife has always been most supportive when I've needed her the most. And that was a time, I mean, it was very difficult. It was a very lucrative business I had been in.
Sure.
And, starting this new business was very difficult. I mean, we had to tap into savings, literally sold IRAs and did things like that. But I felt like we were going to be headed in the right direction. And it took years. I mean, the first 3 years we were only in Hudson, and then other cities started to contact us, and we did start to grow. And I did recognize that it was, an easily duplicated model because there's a need for it everywhere. And it doesn't take, once we gained the reputation and the systems, it was easy to get new partners, new cities and schools to work with us. And so we did, once we started to grow, we grew quickly. And it was around 2008 when we really started to branch out to other markets. But we unfortunately did not franchise at that time. My brother-in-law, who's a partner now with me in the franchise venture, talked to me about franchising the business at that time. And unfortunately, the consultants that I went to originally were, it did not seem like we could franchise the business and further the mission at the same time. Fast forward now to when Dave talked to me about it again, we went through the company control growth, where we opened areas, we hired area managers. Usually they were young people that worked for us and moved. Unfortunately, though, even though we did that because we wanted to have more control over the business and the mission, we actually had a lot less control. And that's something we can talk about further when we talk about the franchise model. Because we hired these young people as area managers, and after a short, not a short period of time, after 2-3 years, they would either get another offer or decide to do something else. And then we got to replace the person in Pittsburgh. We got to replace the person in Philadelphia, and that was happening all the time. And then once COVID hit, we lost several areas that way. And then we sprung back once, the world came back to normal. The industry, as you well know, has just really taken off. So we did well there, but Dave talked to me again and talked to me about franchising as a way to grow in a smarter way and to further the mission even more. And he interviewed a bunch of consultants. We finally met Andy Bilfuss with Quarles and Brady, who introduced us to iFranchise. And when I talked to those folks, I realized the fact that we can keep the mission, we can further the mission, just have to get the right people as franchisees.
Absolutely.
So that's been our charge for these last couple of years.
Yeah, it always comes down to the people. And as you probably have found now, since you franchised and since 2023, you probably have quickly found that there are so many advantages to franchising this concept versus just growing, that while we like to think it's controlled growth, having this company-owned effort, there are so many challenges with running this particular business as strictly company-owned locations, and the need for people, but even more so, culturally needing somebody with really boots on the ground locally. I personally found that nobody's going to work harder and nobody's going to work smarter than franchise owners, just than the churn and burn of having employees at the local markets. So I'm glad you entered the fray of franchising. I want to get into that. So, you ran your company on location though for 20 years. So you guys really honed in your messaging, your systems and processes, obviously along the way. And your angle is a little bit different than, say, my version of kids sports, because whereas we competed directly head to head with Parks and Recreation and YMCA and Little League and so forth. You went a
Right.
different angle, which has also been proven successful for many other organizations, where by partnering up with these Parks and Recreation departments, we found since, gosh, you can go back to the 90s, at least that's as far back as I go in running kids sports programs, whereas there was always been budget cuts. And the first thing to go is the Parks and Recreation staffing and the ability for them to run programs. So you found your angle of being able to partner up with these Parks and Rec departments. I'm curious now, since you franchised the company, is that still part of the business model where your franchisees are partnering up with the Parks and Recreation departments?
Yeah, we find those partnerships to be very valuable. Getting new customers, sustaining the customers. It goes back to what I said about what's good for kids is going to be good for our business. We try and get the kids involved in a wide variety of sports, but also, just trying one sport and then another. My philosophy as a parent is that I wanted to introduce my kids to as many things as I could and let them find what they're passionate about. And that's what we try and do as a company. We don't hold ourselves out to be, the expert on any one sport, but we want to give a good, healthy, fun introduction to a wide variety of sports to kids. And at summer camp, we want them to really grow as people. We like to give them kind of a taste of life at our sports programs to learn, to develop character and to learn life lessons that they don't necessarily learn outside the classroom.
Absolutely. Now that we're up to the franchising part of the history here, I'm curious, has JumpStart Sports evolved beyond camps, or is your core camps and like child development programs primarily? Are you doing leagues as well?
We do leagues. Yes, we do. A lot of preschool leagues, introductory sports programs, so that we work year round. So that we do have 6 week programs where kids, learn how to play soccer when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, and then they try baseball and but yeah, we do have leagues, introductory sports programs, after school programs, and the sports camps.
Nice. All right. So to bring everybody up to speed, you officially launched your franchise in 2023, right in the spring. And since that time, you've got 10 franchises open. You're in 6 states, right? Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, North Carolina, and now you're in Texas as well.
We are we have a new franchise that we signed last week that we're very excited about, and we're really excited about all the people that we have in place at these franchises. Some of them were conversions, like Philadelphia was, Maryland was, Pittsburgh was, but we were fortunate. We were fortunate to find the right people in each of those markets. We were looking for specific kinds of people. The Stackhouse family in Philadelphia was the first one, and Andy Stackhouse is a young man about my age, and then his son, who's in his 30s, who is terrific, and they have connections all over the city. Andy literally has 35 nieces and nephews, all of whom
Oh
are
my
involved in
gosh.
sports. So he's got a great base of coaches there. In Maryland, John Henderson is a young man who was working for us as a camp director, and he's a teacher. And when I told him what we were doing, he expressed an interest, and he's taken over the franchise in Montgomery County, Maryland, and took a lot of extra legal work to be able to work in Maryland, but that's been finalized now. And in Pittsburgh, we found, Pittsburgh was one of those places where we constantly had area managers in and out. We had a young woman come in. She was amazing, did a great job. She got hired by the city of Pittsburgh, so we lost her, then kept trying to replace her. So finally, Kyle Prince and his soon to be wife, Daphne Chavez, were actually parents in one of our classes. And he's a real sharp salesperson, and she's in HR, and they're a perfect team to take over our franchise there. And they've done an amazing job of rebuilding a lot of partnerships that we had there and reestablishing a substantial business there. So all of those conversions have been very successful. And then we have a father-son combination in Arizona who used to live in Hudson. And Bob Moyer, when he heard I was franchising the business, he was, hey, we're in Arizona. We'd love to do it here. And that's worked out well. And then Patricio and Tony Castro are a couple brothers in the Dallas area, just fantastic people who reached out to us, and that was last fall, and it's a very long process, the whole sales process. I'm used to very, in advertising, it was always quick sales,
Right, right.
relatively. But when you think about it, when you're talking to somebody about buying a franchise, it's so much more significant than even a house
Oh yeah.
because you're talking to them about their whole future in their life and what they're going to do with their business going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, heck, if you're going to sell a house, you just sell a house to move to another house. But in order to start your franchise, you're leaving your career and you're leaving everything behind and the guarantees that you've had. And it's obviously not, not for everybody, of course, to leave a career into going into, buying a franchise or just being a business owner. For that matter. So, Rick, I'm curious to learn more about what makes your franchise unique when it comes to the kind of people you're looking for, because you kind of shared all these different backgrounds, these people, these conversions of folks that you knew of. Who is the ideal franchise owner? Like, I want to know, what are some of the traits you're looking for in somebody to bring them on?
Well, that's a great question. The one thing that we feel like they absolutely have to have, they have to share our passion for the mission. They have to really buy into the fact that we are trying to impact the lives of kids through sports. That's first and foremost. We don't want to put parameters on things, but I think the team aspect seems to be a great fit. Whether it's a husband and wife, a parent and a child, siblings, but we do feel it's good to have a team. But the passion is the main thing, and I think they need to be a people person. They need to be somebody that can, obviously relate well to kids. But before you get to relate well to kids, you've got to relate well to their parents so their parents buy into you. And
Right.
before we can sell the parents, we have to convince the cities and the schools that we're a great company to work with. So that's all buying into the person. And I was at the Pennsylvania Rec Conference recently with Tom Stackhouse and Ty Prince, and to a person, I mean, every one of these rec people came up to me and said, I want to thank you. These guys are so amazing and we love working with them. And that's what we're looking for. And really, I could tell you what I told one of the rec directors in a city where we're not able to work at, which is that, if every one of the rec people knows, that guy in their community, man or woman, who is involved in every youth sports program and is totally engaged, and the kids love this person. And I'm kind of describing what I was 22 years ago.
Right.
But that person that's really committed to it and has been volunteering for so many years. And that's what I did until I said, you know what? I mean, I spend so much time at what I do, I have to find a way to make a living doing it. We're really looking for people who that really resonates with, both the mission and the ability to, have the flexibility in your lifestyle to be able to schedule things the way you want. The way we scale our business is, one person can only go out to so many different events.
True.
So we have to figure out a way to recruit and hire and train other people to do the same thing. And then you can scale it. And if you want to go away in August, you can do that. Or, you can adjust your business to the life that you want to live.
Is there a requirement to be full-time, or can somebody do this part-time?
Well, to start with, people can start part-time, but eventually, that's why I say it's a good partnership situation,
Mhm.
because one of the two people really would have to be full-time.
Yeah. I mean, there's not many franchise opportunities I know of where you can be really successful doing something part-time. So at the very least, you want to have at least two people doing it and making up full-time is what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it's something they can work toward.
Hmm.
John Henderson, who I mentioned earlier was a teacher, he finished one more year of teaching, but now he has a ton of business set up for the summer and the fall. So he's done with his teaching. Ty and Daphne in Pittsburgh, the hope is that Daphne is going to leave her HR job and help manage everything. I mean, Ty is the guy that goes out and gets all the business, and then together they have to recruit and hire and train the people to run the camps and programs.
Yeah. So, Rick, what does a day in the life look like for your franchise owners? Give me a sense of what their responsibilities are, because I think I really want the audience to hear this, because there may be some, for folks that don't have a background in youth sports, they may be wondering, am I the guy running around on the field with the whistle around my neck? Or am I going to these parks and rec departments and networking and building relationships with facilities and trying to grow the business and hiring people? So I want you to tell me, what are the prime responsibilities for your franchisees?
The latter was a perfect explanation of what they need to be doing. They have to be able to lead from the front and get out there and
Yeah.
blow the whistle and run the soccer classes for the kids. But they also, more importantly, need to be the one that is able to network with the rec departments, get the contracts in place, do all the marketing, implement all of our systems to generate the kind of business that they need to be successful, and then recruiting and hiring and training staff. And that's why it is a good team effort. If you have one person that is driving operations and one that is, driving sales, then they can, if you have one person doing both of those things, it becomes more difficult. But if you have one person focused on recruiting, hiring, training, staffing programs, and one on generating new business, it's a really good dynamic. Early on, they'll probably want to and need to go out and work with people, because we do have very good training systems. We have, training videos. We have our team that comes and then trains the staff in each location. People need to go out there and do it themselves in order to really learn how to run the programs. Camps are actually a little bit easier because, we recruit and hire a lot of young teachers, and teachers have the kind of training that they need to manage a large group of children. So then it's just a matter of implementing the curriculum that we supply them with, using the equipment that we recommend. Then it's pretty turnkey. With the programs, what we always say is we don't recruit world-class athletes. We recruit world-class teachers who have a good understanding of sports and really relate well to children, because sometimes the best athlete is not the best teacher. That's not to say that they can't be. We have some pretty accomplished athletes that work for us now, that have worked for us, but we really look for the people with big personalities, great attitudes, can-do type people that understand enough about sports to teach a 3, 4, 5-year-old or a 7, 8, 9-year-old at camps or intro programs. As far as a franchisee is concerned, what they're going to want to be doing is, getting the contracts, driving the business, doing the marketing plans that we give them, working with us to make sure everything is running smoothly, recruiting, hiring, training staff that can run programs, and going out and spot checking. Making sure that everything is being run to our expectation and theirs.
Sure. And Rick, so when I hear camps, of course, I know people are probably thinking also this business is probably pretty seasonal. Can you talk to me a little bit about the seasonality of the business? Because these camps are run year round, right? Not just in the summer.
It is seasonal, and it is year round. That's changing too, because in Texas and in Arizona, for example, we can't do very much in the summer
Right.
without an indoor facility. So you have to secure an indoor facility. So it kind of changes the seasonality, but we're busiest when kids are available in the summer and on the weekends and evenings. So there is a lot of seasonality to it, but with the sports programs, we have seasonal sports programs, the preschool programs, holiday camps, days off camps, all of those things that generate more revenue during the year, and maybe even more importantly, build the customer base. And that's really where the fit of the mission and the business are best, in that, we're providing things that families need, with the childcare, but also the positive, good activity. And then, we have things available for families to participate in at all times during the year. So when we're developing the staff and the customer base during the winter months in the north, then when the summer rolls around, we have, people have experience with our programs, and we have experience with our directors to make sure that they're the right people to be running those, because it's not always, we've had people that were certified teachers that looked like they would be wonderful, and they were not, and other people that were, maybe a little bit young, 22, 23, becoming a camp director, but they were, dynamic and
Sure.
mature and fantastic, and they worked out really well.
Wow. Elaborate a little more on the training. So are franchisees coming to Ohio for a classroom portion, or is everything remote and online?
We do like for people to come to Ohio, at least for right now, to meet with them personally, to have them see things firsthand. But a big part of our training system is us going there. It's part of their contract that we send a team of people to go help them launch, to to train their staff, to help train their staff, and to introduce programs to individuals. In some cases, if the franchisee doesn't have a strong business or sales background, we'll send. Right now, it's me
Mm-hmm.
to go help teach these guys how to get the contracts from the
Mm.
cities and schools.
How many employees do you expect a new franchisee to bring on from the very beginning to run these programs initially?
Well, it really depends on how many camps and programs they get set up.
Sure.
Because if they want to staff it at a 10 or 12 to 1 ratio for programs, and a 8 to 1 ratio for camps. So that is one aspect of the business model that's good, is that you have to be doing your recruiting and hiring before things are set up, but you can judge how many people to bring on based on how many contracts you have set up, what your expectation is of how many kids you're going to get at the camps and programs, and then you can staff accordingly. And then we do have some other methods where we can, bring, more people on and get them trained. So it's really a puzzle that they have to put together over time, and that we help them with.
Sure. Does technology play a pivotal role in your franchise?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as you well know, that there's so much technology now that is very useful, both in terms of the registration, the communication with families, communication with staff, keeping track of time and hours. And that's one of the things that Dave and Cindy came to me about. Cindy is amazing. She managed a group of about 3,000 women in a sales company previously, and they are both on top of all technology. As you can tell by the Zoom meeting, I'm technologically challenged, but both Dave and Cindy are very on top of things, and have sought out. They were at IFA, where I think they met you, and they met some others at IFA. We've collectively taken a look at everything that we're doing, and where needed, we've improved all of the technology aspects of the business. So important to any business, and certainly to ours.
Yeah. And in order for your franchisees truly to grow, to scale this thing, any way that you can help them to be able to streamline the business where they're not manually doing the work is going to allow them to grow so much faster. I think that's one of the big challenges with our business, though, in the kids' sports space, is that there is there are so many touches, right? Involvement. In your case, you're dealing with the Parks and Rec departments. You're dealing with contracts with them. You're dealing with the parents. I don't know if you do like a revenue share with the Parks and Rec, if that's how the revenue model works. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but there's so much involved that streamlining this is going to be critical because there are so many different touch points and there are different people you're dealing with, from staffing to Parks and Rec to the parents, to the kids, to the coaches. It's just a necessary evil of the business. I'm curious, Rick, you've been franchising now for really just about a year and you've already spread your wings in 9 different states. What would you say so far has been one of the biggest surprises that you've experienced since franchising?
We'll say that how long the process is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we would roll it out and just be selling them like hotcakes, and apparently we've done pretty well for
You
one
have.
year. But it's and we're perfectly happy to do it the right way.
Yeah.
We have had situations where a couple young people that worked for us before, who I really like and are good at running programs, but they weren't the right fit for a franchisee. That's been a challenge. And I will say with our model, the partnership does make it a little more challenging because we just give up a little bit of the control that way that you want to have as a franchise.
Yes, but at the same time, I got to give you credit, though, that you do have an advantage, though, and that is you have a more direct line access to the customers. You have the access. So, like, compared to my old company, right, if I was competing with Parks and Rec or competing with JumpStart Sports, I have to go find the parents, right? So I have to do exhaustive marketing to getting those parents, whereas you have more of a direct artery to those parents through the Parks and Rec. So there's a give and take. I don't think there's one particular model that is, there's head and shoulders above the rest. There's a lot of different ways of skinning this cat.
Absolutely. And I've heard nothing but good things about I9 Sports. And I know that's a great company that you started and made into a national phenomenon. And what I was told our people, and what I truly believe, is that if we do what we do well,
Mm-hmm.
that there's plenty of business in this industry to be very successful, irrespective of, we also have the difficulty of, we've had cities that we go to work for that say, hey, that's a great idea. I think we'll do it ourselves. We invest all the time, effort, and money into it, and they can pull it from us because they have ultimate control. But what I've always told our folks, like I said, I mean, it's a booming industry, and the more people that are out there doing good things for kids, I'm all for it.
Yeah, Rick, there are thousands of parks and recreation departments, and there's always budgets being cut, and there's always going to be a need for your service. And I think what you're going to find is, once in a while, you might get a Parks and Rec that's going to say, Rick, I love your idea. It's so great. We're going to implement it ourselves. The whole reason why they came to you to begin with was they couldn't implement it themselves. They are not capable in so many times over. It's the reason why there are so many youth sports programs that are third party that exist. It's because they just can't do it. And gosh, I can get into a whole...
Frank, more often than taking things away, right, they say to us, oh, you do a great job with this sport. We had our tennis guy drop out. Can you do tennis? And what we try to do is, get ourselves in the door and do well with one thing. And then typically they hire us to do more and more and more and not less.
Of course. And that's going to continue to happen. I think, Rick, you stay true to who you are and what JumpStart Sports is. And I think you've got a great angle, and you just keep going with it, because there's a huge need for the public-private partnerships. And there's been obviously been a lot of talk about that for many, many years, about the needs of the public sector, of needing a company like yours to come in and to be able to provide the service. I want to go back, though, to something you said earlier. We started talking about franchising. You said, well, gosh, I was going to sell them like hotcakes. You have no idea that what is been to your benefit was not to sell any more than you have already sold. Because when we start franchising, we don't even know what we don't know. And the two examples that you had happen, where you had these area managers that came in and you thought they were great. They were great area managers and you thought they were, well, if they're a great area manager, they're going to be a great franchisee. And you came to find out, just as I did as well, and so many other people happen the same thing. We find that that is not true. It's just because they were a good area manager does not make somebody a great franchise owner. And just could you imagine if you had sold double or triple the amount of franchises and you could have learned a very hard lesson that way. So I think slow and controlled growth is better because you're learning every single day. And I don't care how long you do this for. You do this, I've been doing this over 20 years. I'm still learning something every single day. Every time I think, wow, I never thought someone would actually do that. And they did it. You make changes, you make improvements, you implement things along the way. So I'm telling you, it is a blessing that your growth is controlled.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, like I said, we want to do it right, not necessarily right away. I mean, everyone wants to do both, but the faster you grow, the more difficult it's going to be. So, now that we're gaining some momentum, we hope to, add a few more units, in the next, 5 or 6 more units in the next year or so. But we'll see how that goes.
You will. Speed, the cliche of speed kills is true in franchising. Nobody needs to try to grow too fast where it's, out of control. But I am curious. I always love to ask people, like, what's their vision? So have you thought about, like, how big is big? How big do you see JumpStart getting?
Well, that's a great question. I'd really like for us to have a national presence. And so if I had to put a number on it, I think I would say about 100. I think I think we need to be careful not only about the people that we go that we take on in franchisees, but also the places. We somebody reached out to us from really the middle of Kansas, and if you draw if we drew a circle around where this person lived, there were maybe 20,000 people. That's not going to sustain this kind of a franchise. I think about 100.
Tell me, Rick, how are territories developed? Do you is it by zip code, and how big is a territory?
Another great question. It's almost like you've been through this before.
Once or twice.
So yeah. So that's something that we're kind of changing now. We're looking at establishing the franchises first, the territories first, and then when we find the right people, we're matching the territory with the people. Truthfully, in the past, with the conversions, that was somewhat easy because we had established customer base there,
Right.
and it was a matter of them fitting to the customer base. In other cases, what we've been warned about from our consultants is don't leave it to to the person buying the franchise because they'll just draw a circle around
Where they
four
live.
different four different territories, that happen to benefit them. We were lucky in Dallas that what the Castros Patricia wanted was a distinct area, North Dallas. So we then defined the rest of the Dallas market, and um, we're going to go to states like Maryland now. Now that we're legal to sell franchises in Maryland, John is in Montgomery County. Most of the work there is done by county, so we're going to establish what the territories are and then fit the franchisee to that territory as opposed to the other way around.
I like that until they want to change it.
So then they can buy two, right? But
That's right. How big is a territory? What's the population size of a territory?
about a million, yeah, but a million to 1.5 million is a good size market to be able to operate in. We don't want to have people on top of each other, so we want everyone to have a distinct territory and possibly the ability to grow from there. So the answer to your question is about 1 to 1.5 million
And
people.
and what's the investment range of the franchise?
The investment it's a $35,000 franchise fee, and then our estimated additional costs are about another 30,000.
Okay.
So about
Okay.
65 to 70 to all in to start. Now, the franchise fee is obviously paid with the contract, but the other expenses, like I said, you get the business first, and then a lot of the expenses are incurred. You have to get insurance in place. You have to do some of the expenses just have to be immediate, but it is possible to start earning money before they're incurring the other expenses. But for somebody looking into the franchise, we want them to be financed properly so that they have enough uh, uh, in the bank,
Absolutely.
$70,000 to be able to grow the first year without worrying about whether you can pay for equipment.
Absolutely. They have to be able to sustain that time period of growth.
Right.
Yeah. So Rick, if someone was interested in learning more about your franchise, I'm curious to hear what's some advice that you give them when you tell them to go research, because obviously we don't want to sell to everybody, but I'm curious what kind of homework or what kind of advice do you give them when they're looking at investing in you?
I would say to look at the sports camps and sports programs in your area
Mm-hmm.
and see, if there might be a fit there. If they reach out to us, we can do that pretty quickly. And you asked about technology. We've developed some things, through AI and other technology that is very quick and easy to analyze the market and determine. Another factor that we're leaning toward in determining territories is how many potential partners are there? How many private schools? How many, um, rec departments are there? Because you're not going to be as easy of a sell as it is. You're not going to sell every single one. So that's another criteria that we use. But I would just, and if it's the kind of person that is involved in sports, they'll know we need something like that here,
Right.
or we don't. And I will say though that in markets where there are a ton of programs,
Mm-hmm.
like California, for example, the reason there is so much programming there is because there's such a need. Everybody in California is outdoors and into sports. And so if you feel like there's a glut of programming there, there's usually still room for growth. And if there's a dearth of programming, well, here we are.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely don't be afraid of competition, because there are so many kids, millions of kids that are playing in kids sports programs, and there's no one particular organization that can satisfy all the needs.
No question.
Yeah, yeah. I'm rooting for you. Obviously I love the business, but I love talking to fellow franchisors in this space, because we are kindred spirits. We're in it to improve the lives of kids and to impact their lives in a very meaningful way. And there's just so much business out there. And fortunately for us, there are a lot of poorly run programs out there that we get to make a difference in kids' lives. And if only programs such as ours and the few others that I know that are in franchising that only existed, we couldn't satisfy everybody.
No question about it. It's a huge and growing market, and the whole privatization of youth sports.
Yeah.
You and I pioneered 20 years ago, so
Mm-hmm.
now it's become mainstream, but it's still pretty much of a new concept. Usually most sports programs outside of the city are run by private nonprofit groups
Right.
that are dependent on volunteer parents, and that can only be sustained for so long. So that's where they look to organizations like ours to fill the needs.
Yeah. And in many cases, we're dealing with, if you think about it, this is an industry that's been around for over 100 years. Pop Warner
Yeah.
started in 1929, Little League Baseball in 1939. Incredibly, a lot of the programs that have been out there for over 100 years haven't evolved much. They're still doing things the
Right.
same way they've always done them, because it's the
Exactly.
way we've always done it, is what they say. And it's
Absolutely.
created a huge opportunity for organizations such as yours.
Absolutely.
So Rick, if someone was interested in learning more about your franchise, where would they go?
Just go to jumpstartsports.com and you can go to the franchise section and learn more about it, and then reach out if you're interested.
Awesome. All right, Rick. Well, I always end every podcast with what I call the tip jar, because the franchise
Yes.
community is so generous. So if I was an aspiring franchisor looking to franchise my concept, what would be a piece of advice that you would give me before I get into franchising?
I would say to absolutely find the right consultants and the right guidance. Pay what it costs to get the right people, and if you can't afford it, you can't do it. They're not inexpensive, but we had incredible success with iFranchise and with Quarles and Brady. And I know there are a lot of others out there that seem very good as well. But I would say, get advice from people like you, Frank, and like others that really know the franchising business, which is completely different than whatever business you're in now.
Amen to that. Rick, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.